My name is Peter, this is my chaotic fishing, and today's gonna be a little bit different.
Oh my God. So there's the lake. The ramp is 16 feet underwater there. Obviously you got fire rescue, water rescue was here earlier. They're letting it rip, boys. They're letting it rip.
Alright, so a little bit of a later start than I wanted to get. I actually wanted to try to get some sunrise stuff with the drone, but the reality is with this cloud cover, it just wasn't going to happen. My name is Peter, this is my chaotic fishing, and today's going to be a little bit different. Well, it, I guess, is somewhat connected to fishing. We're not going fishing today. Yeah, no, you heard that right. I don't even have a single pole with me. Kind of strange, but what is even stranger is thinking about all the places that I would typically fish on this lake, and not the one that I'm driving over right now, but the one that we're going to. And I say we because we got little man back there. Thinking about all those places that I would typically fish that are about 12 to 15 feet underwater right now. Matter of fact, it wasn't maybe a month ago that him and I were out there beating the banks and fishing some main lake points, catching smallmouth, striper, hybrid, white bass, largemouth. I mean, the fishery is it's kind of hard to argue. It's probably one of the best in Texas, one of my favorite, and right now it is critically flooded. I mean, people way smarter than myself are really trying to put together the whole outlook on what's going to happen, right? How much water's coming in? How much water can they let out? Remember, at this dam, they've got 4 huge gates that can flow like 15,000 CFM. Just massive amounts of water that they can move, right? So they can let out, I think, a maximum of like 60,000 CFM. And I could be wrong, and I'm sure that there's somebody who's more educated on the subject than me at the moment. I've got to look a lot of this stuff up because I want to understand, right? Like, how much water can they crank out of this place? Because the amount of water that's flowing into this lake it's ridiculous. Last night, I was on the phone with a buddy of mine, John Shin. He lives up that way. He's pretty familiar with this pond. And, we were seeing like 160,000 plus flow into this lake. So, to put it in some perspective, even if they could release 60,000 CFM, that's a lot of water. They're still taking in 100,000 on top of that, and that was as of last night. Like, it hasn't rained in 2 days. That's just all the flow into the river. We've got dumpers that are going over it right now. We're actually, if you take a look, we're right there in Dallas, and we're heading up north. So the first arm has already gone over that area. The second arm is headed up that way. So some pretty heavy rains headed that way. A lot of stuff behind it. The last time that I recall the water actually going over the Spillway was about 10 years ago. I was here for that. I knew a guy who had a slip up at Highport Marina. Matter of fact, I had just got done having that built out. Had a big Boston whaler up there. It was over the Spillway. So we're gonna get some petrol real quick and be on the road for this adventure up to a flooding lake that's about to breach the Spillway. Check it out. My name's Peter, this is my chaotic fishing, and today we're going on an adventure. Hope you're coming with me. You can see some of the clouds. We've got a little reprieve from the rain right now. We're in between 2 legs, right? The legs on the storm, they run north-south, and you've got a leg that is now east of us, and you've got a much bigger leg. I'll see if I can't grab an overlay or show you the radar here. got a much bigger leg out west that is coming. So if we're lucky, we'll get a little bit of drone footage and kind of give you a bird's eye view of just how close we are from this lake going under a uncontrolled release, right? Because once it goes over the spillway, that's that's it. You ain't got no more control of that, unless they can somehow stretch them gates of the dam. That's gonna be all she wrote. See what it do. All right, so we had to check out the river. We got to see what the river's doing, and I'll just speak for myself. But as we approach this river, like when the water's up this high, it kind of creeps me out. Like that's a lot of water flowing, and I mean you don't see, you know, nobody else freaking out, nothing like that, and they don't have, you know, a bunch of emergency vehicles like something's gonna happen. It just personally gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like that is a shit ton of water. I think exactly right now they're estimating it's a metric shit ton, right? Like that's I don't know, but it's a lot of water, and that's pretty gnarly. I get that not everybody thinks about it the way that I do, but man. So you got, holy moly, look at that. That is up. Oh my goodness, that thing is flowing. Oh yeah, look at, yeah, they got all their service vehicles right there. They're chilling. Holy smokes, look at, you can see it. Do you see the water down there? Look at, through the trees. Do you see it, Bug?
Yeah.
Can you see the water down there? I can see the water down there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see, I mean the water's right there at the end of the road. That is East Burns on Lake Texoma. And here in a few feet, the water's gonna start coming up the road. The lake is currently taking in more water than it can release, so that's actively flooding. Right now, we're watching that come up. That is crazy. I'm sure my GoPro, I guess this is where you'd want like a fancier camera. You know, I could zoom in. I can see basically, there are a couple birds that are like at the water's edge. And then those, you know, those little signs that go along the road. And I'm just watching the birds move. Not like, you know, the water's not like rushing up onto the grass. I'm not trying to be all dramatic, but you know, if you've ever been out here, I mean, that's gnarly. That's a lot of water. That's a lot of water. That's crazy. Dude, nature's so fucking rad. I had to pick one lake that I could fish the rest of my life in Texas, I don't know, this might be it. Really honestly might be it. You've got all the species here: striper, hybrid, white bass, largemouth, smallmouth, spotted bass, catfish, all the types of catfish. I'm not a gar or a carp guy, but look at that. It is, I mean, I've walked all that. I'd be I guess about 16 feet underwater right now. The lake is 16 feet high. So where I'd normally be fishing from, it's 16 feet underwater right now. And it's looking like a West Texas lake. That is some chocolatey milk from all them rivers flowing in here. I mean, the amount of runoff that Texoma collects is just absolutely gnarly. All the marinas right now, man, I feel absolutely terrible. I remember, like I said, about 10 years ago, last time that the spillway was breached, and I mean, I had a guy that I was working for, and he had a boat in Highport, so we pulled that thing out, obviously. Man, I remember going back afterwards when the water had started to recede. That was gnarly. It looks like we may be able to go check the spillway. We'll have to drive back over the dam to check that out, but I wanted to take a look at the spillway ramp. You've already got a lot of like emergency vehicle presence. Yeah, it's emergency response vehicles. All we can do is hope that they're safe. Man, they are letting it flow down there. That is the Red River. This is kind of the split between Texas and Oklahoma, and you can see, gate controls there, and they do have some of the flood stages marked on that bridge there, and we are not far from like some record-breaking water levels here on Lake Texoma. Let's see what we got going. We got lots of like state vehicles and all that different stuff. So I don't know exactly, what all we're gonna be able to do and see, but it'll certainly be interesting. They're bringing in loads and loads of dirt. I think they're reinforcing spillway stuff. It's wet. It is wet. The ground is definitely saturated at this point, right? We'll take a cruise out here so you can kind of see what I'm talking about as far as those record levels, right? So the highest marker that we have on this was the record flood of June 2015. Lake level got up 645.72, and then back in May of 1990, so like 25 years previous, it was at 644.76. We're not far from that, and God, I don't know if you can hear it right now. I don't know if it's like generators, if it's wind, what all that noise is, but again, you can see there the record flood of May 1990 was at 644.76. The record flood of June 2015, 645.72. And currently, the lake is letting out. Right, we'll go over to this. You can kind of take a look. Sorry, I've got a polarization filter on there. So, reservoir release 42,212. But the lake is currently taking in 133. So do a little bit of basic math. We're still taking in 90,000 cubic feet of water per second. It shows 631 as our current water elevation. I don't know if that's correct. Top of flood 640, right? So 640 is where the spillway is, and so 644 and 645, that's 4 and 5 feet over the spillway. That's just how much water, how much runoff collects into Lake Texoma. And as of 8:40 this morning, you can see where I'm at, right? I'm right down here. This is Denison Dam. Let me zoom out a little bit for y'all, kind of give you an idea, of what's going on. The spillway is down here. The actual dam is here, and then that's the Red River. That's a demarcation line between Texas, Oklahoma. And so what happens is as the lake fills up, this is all flooding, and the dam is, higher elevation than the spillway, but they, the dam is controlled release, right? They control the release of water from the dam into the Red River. However, if the lake levels get too high, right, that whole area floods. It goes over the spillway and then flows around and then down into there. So not only, flood control, but, power generation, all that different stuff. This all happens here. And it's starting to dump. So I'm gonna roll windows up. I mean, they got tons of emergency vehicles cruising around right now. So we're gonna back up. We're gonna get out of here and see if we can give you some more visual on our flooding event here on Lake Texoma. This is May 6th, 2025. Man, that's crazy. That's pretty gnarly. So we got Denison out here. We got Denison, we got water rescue, we got fire rescue, got the ambulance. Got everybody out here kind of staged up here at the spillway ramp. This might be the last time we get to drive over this ramp. I don't know. I mean, the water's right here. Like, that's, there's the spillway right there. Let me roll the window down. Right, that's the spillway. That's uncontrolled release of water out of Lake Texoma. And that's Lake Texoma right there. So we don't have much to go before this thing comes over the road here, and and we're gonna end up having to drive all the way back around to get to the other side. You can see, part of the spillway there. That's like the buildup to maintain, control of all that different stuff, and that's where we are. We've already got a bunch of emergency vehicles cruising around in preparation for the rising water levels. Right, as we come through here, you can see that is Lake Texoma. That is the spillway, and current water levels say that even with full release through the dam, it's still taking in like 100,000 cubic feet a second of water. And I think they are preparing to shut this road down, because that right there, that's the lake. That's a spillway over there. There's the dam. So of course it, it won't go over the dam, but man, nature is awesome. We're gonna stay out of the way. I'm not gonna go. I'd love to talk to those guys, but the reality of the situation is they got shit to do. Man, I'd love to talk to those guys. But like I said, they got shit to do, so we're not gonna bother with them. For those of y'all that have fished here, this is a lot of water, right? There's no other way to say it. This is a lot of water. If you don't geek out on weather stuff like this, I don't know what to say. I can't tell you, how many fish I've caught in this area. I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people that are just taken back by the water levels here. This is crazy. The shoreline, just for reference, like that's normally all fishable. And the ramp's there about 16 feet underwater, right? Because the lake is currently 16 feet high. We have a lot of time for people who live around the lake. Like, there's no reason to be caught off guard by this. You can see the rain line off in the distance there. I mean, it is coming. That is heavy rain, and it's not just the rain that's going to drop into the lake, right? Like, that's all the inflow, not only from the Washita River, and I probably butchered that name, but not only from just the rain coming down, but then also all the runoff that comes into this lake is incredible. I mean, if I had a time lapse right now, I guarantee we could watch that water rise, because that much water coming into this lake that's going up. It's going up, man. I hope everybody's using the head, being safe. I just wanted to document this stuff. I mean, it's not often. It's not often. And obviously, you know, the folks who take care of the dam and water levels and all that different stuff, you know, they're a lot smarter than me. But the last time this all went down, I was up at the marina like every day. You know, as the water rose, till they finally completely closed it off. So like I said, 10 years ago when this happened, I was here for it, right? I was over at Highport, and you know, we had to pull a boat out, and then we watched it, you know, go up, and then we watched it go down. Why am I thinking about fishing right now? Look at all them birds over there. I wonder if they're shad up there. Probably not. But anywho, Army Corps engineers, right? They take care of all this different stuff, and then all the local municipalities, you know, fire rescue, water rescue, all that different stuff. They all work together based on what, you know, Army Corps says. I guess that's you know, that's what they do, right? So all the local municipalities and emergency response services and all that different stuff, they assist in whatever they need. This is the Spillway Road right here, and soon they're saying it'll probably get shut down. You can see there's tons of people up there. I assume whether it's people like me that are just looking, or people getting ready to work, man, you can hear that thunder rolling. So there's, you know, there's the lake. The ramp is 16 feet underwater there, and then you've got the road coming across here. You got Spillway over there. Lots of people hopefully are already ready for all that rain that's coming. You can see that rain line. You can see that rain line over there. That is crazy. There's so much water. You know, obviously you got fire rescue, water rescue was here earlier. If y'all follow my channel, you know, man, there's a lot of good fishing over there. So it's probably gonna move some of that water around. Some of that structure gonna be redone. Get out of this rain a little bit. Man, that's really all I got for you. It is Tuesday, May 6th. Water levels about 631, and flood is 640, but they've got 100,000 cubic feet per second coming in above what they're releasing. So we'll head over to the Spillway. We'll get some footage of that, kind of take a look at what it is now, and we'll update here in the next couple days and see what we got going on. I don't know how far we'll be able to drive here, but it may give you an even better perspective. Maybe we can drive to the other side and give you a good view of the Spillway. Man, it looks like we'll be able to. Holy smokes. Man, look at all that water getting released right now. They're letting it rip, boys. They're letting it rip. Holy moly. That is epic. Shit. That is a ton of water. Oh my god. Dude, that's insane. That is so much water. Over 40,000 cubic feet per second. You ready?
Yeah.
Here, let's get out of the rain for a second. Man, dude, that is the Red River, and you can see that water is just rushing out of here. All right, we're gonna get back into the truck. God, nature's rad. All right, ready? I know the audio isn't great on a GoPro. I wish y'all could hear the sound of the release up there, but man, there was a big old school of loons that just came through here. This is down below the spillway, right? The lake is up there at 631 foot elevation, and obviously you can see, you know, tremendous amount of water being released there. Somebody with a freaking boat, I guess, ready to launch. Funny story, about 10 years ago, last time the lake went over the spillway, we launched the boat from here. We went out there and we caught seemingly endless amounts of 20-pound plus striper, some of the biggest striper I've ever personally caught right out here in this current. Man, that was with Jay, was our guide. He was the guy crazy enough to launch the boat out here with us, but it was insane. Trolling motor is useless, right? That guy has a trolling motor on the front of his boat. That ain't gonna do jack shit, nothing against that current. We were literally on a big motor. If I were that guy, that dude's not, I would not be that guy. I would not go out on the water with that guy. Look at the loons out there. Basically what happens is, as water come around and then it spins, you get those little vortices right there, and we would throw 8-inch poppers across those areas and they would just get absolutely demolished coming across there with, like I said, 20-pound plus striper would just demolish these 8-inch poppers. I don't even know what kind of rods we were using, but you can see a lot of people, you know, pulling up from, you know, previous in the video and all that. But we would pull up at these, you know, little, they're not eddies, but you know, where the water starts to spin over here and off of that point and off of that point, and just absolutely wreck them. You can see all the birds down there. Obviously there's tons of fish, these loons, all these, see them right there. There's another one going in. Those are just like those like seagull birds, but even those guys are eating. Look at, they're just taking bait right out of the water, because what happens is, as that current passes around, there's, if you've been here when it's not flooding, you know, there's a point that goes out there, and so what happens, that water comes out, spins around, and a lot of that bait just gets trapped in there. And so your big stripers from downriver, man, they come up and they absolutely feast. You can see all the birds coming in right now. They absolutely feast on the bait that gets trapped in there. The current's too strong for them little bait fish, and so, man, you can see some of them busting on top. I know a lot of it is, you know, top water ripple and stuff like that, but every so often my eye catches, I mean, right there, another one, just blow ups, man. If I had my rods with me, I'd freaking probably break them all off, but that is rad. I think we were using like 60-pound braid, we were using like 80-pound mono, and just freaking horsing these fish in. It was epic. And we did keep a couple, you know, the smaller fish, but they were hard to come by, to be quite honest with you. They were really hard to come by, so we were just doing catch and release. But this right here is freaking awesome. Look at them all staged up right there. They're ready. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. You can wipe that off a little bit so that you don't miss any of the updates. I'll be coming back as time allows.